On July 19, 1333, the Battle of Halidon Hill took place, marking a significant event in the Wars of Scottish Independence. The battle was rooted in Scotland's fierce struggle for independence from English rule. English King Edward III, eager to assert his power, devised a strategy to defeat the Scots. The Scots, led by Sir William Wallace's ideals, prepared to defend their land fiercely. Local Scottish peasant fighters rallied to join the cause, driven by their love for the homeland. As the armies assembled, the tension in the air was palpable. Both sides knew what was at stake. Sir Edward de Montfort, a noble knight, prepared to lead the charge for the English forces. The Scots, underestimating the English archery tactics, prepared for a fierce engagement. Both armies offered prayers for courage, seeking divine support before the clash. The sounds of war horns pierced the early morning air, signaling the beginning of the battle. Sir Edward de Montfort raised his sword, rallying his troops for the charge. Across the field, Sir William Wallace motivated his Scottish warriors with passionate words. The armies clashed, creating a cacophony of metal and battle cries that echoed across the battlefield. The English archers unleashed a rain of arrows upon the Scots, altering the tide of the battle. The Scottish forces struggled against the onslaught, attempting to maintain their formation. Despite their bravery, the Scottish defense began to crumble under the English assault. As the battle raged on, King Edward III observed from a distance, calculating his moves. The English forces pressed their advantage, pushing the Scots back towards the hilltop. Amid the chaos, a young Scottish peasant fighter demonstrated exceptional bravery, urging his comrades to press on. The cries of battle echoed as the Scots fought against their retreating forces, urging others to hold the line. Amidst the battle, Sir Edward de Montfort found himself face to face with Scottish warriors, testing his mettle. Despite their valor, Scottish forces began to falter, their numbers thinning under the English assault. As the battle neared its climax, legend would recount that Sir William Wallace fought valiantly, becoming a symbol of resistance. In a final push, the English forces secured their victory, overwhelming the Scots and taking the hill. The battlefield fell silent as the residual echoes of clash gave way to a haunting stillness, marking the end of a significant chapter. This victory for the English signified not only a tactical win, but a continued struggle for Scottish identity. In the early morning light, the armies gathered, tension palpable in the air, as the Scottish defenders prepared for the onslaught of English forces, inspired by the valor of their leaders. As the sun rose higher, English archers took their positions on the hillside, their longbows drawn and at the ready, the air thick with anticipation. Meanwhile, the Scots, underestimating the English archers' prowess, attempted to bolster their lines, bolstered by the spirit of their fallen comrades from previous battles. As the battle horns sounded, the archers unleashed a rain of arrows, darkening the sky as they flew towards the Scottish ranks, an ominous harbinger of the violence to come. The first waves of arrows struck the Scottish lines, their formations disrupted as chaos erupted in their ranks, fear palpable amid the cries of wounded comrades. Despite the initial impact, Sir William Wallace shouted words of encouragement to the Scots, galvanizing them to hold the line against the English onslaught. However, as the English forces advanced, Sir Edward de Montfort led a charge down the hill, wielding his sword with valor, aiming to crush the Scottish morale. As the two sides clashed violently, the cries of battle echoed across the valley, a cacophony of steel meeting steel as warriors fought fiercely for their homes. While many Scots fought bravely, the relentless onslaught from the English archers continued, demoralizing the Scottish ranks and stripping them of their confidence. The Scottish peasant fighter, embodying the resolve of his people, cried out for fellow warriors to remain steadfast, though his heart sank as casualties rose around him. Despite the fervent efforts of Wallace and the peasant fighter, the English cavalry surged forward with relentless energy, overpowering the Scots line. Amidst the fray, the banners of Scotland began to falter, their morale waning as more men fell to the relentless English assault. Just when hope seemed lost, Wallace rallied some of his remaining troops by invoking their love for their homeland, igniting a spark of resistance amidst the despair. But the English, sensing victory, pressed forward with mounted knights that broke through the scattered Scottish ranks like a wave crashing upon the shore. As the battle waged on, the cries of fallen Scots and cheers from the English resounded against the canvas of the low-hanging clouds, adding to the heaviness of the atmosphere. Sir Edward de Montfort, amidst the fray, was a beacon of courage, his steel sword flashing as he dispatched foes, driving deeper into Scottish territory. As the tide began clearly in favor of the English, the Scottish forces fought back with desperation, desperately trying to hold their ground. King Edward III watched from a vantage point, encouraged by the unfolding battle and the valiant displays of his knights as the tide turned further. Realizing the battle was slipping further away, Wallace yelled one last call to action, urging any remaining soldiers to find strength in their Scottish pride. With their morale shattered, the Scots began to flee, realizing their desperate situation as the English forces pursued them with relentless vigor. As the battle reached its brutal end, the sound of swords was overtaken by silence, leaving the stillness of regret in its wake across the hill. The victory at Halidon Hill marked a decisive point in the wars of Scottish independence, leading to increased English dominance and strengthening King Edward's ambitions. With the battle over, the English forces celebrated their hard-fought victory, sweeping across Scotland with renewed determination. The early morning light broke over the landscape, revealing the battlefield of Halidon Hill, where preparations were underway. Scottish defenders gathered, spirits high, as they remembered the lore of their homeland and the call of their fallen comrades. As the morning progressed, English warriors assembled on the opposing hill, their armor reflecting the sunlight. Sir Edward de Montfort surveyed his troops, ensuring they were ready for the attack led by the young King Edward III. With the English archers positioned and ready, a hush fell over the battlefield. Both sides felt the weight of history as the moment of reckoning approached, hearts pounding. The English commanders whispered orders, and with a sudden flourish, they unleashed a storm of arrows toward the Scots, filling the air with whistling death that darkened the sky. The Scottish lines faltered as the arrows rained upon them, causing chaos and confusion. Sir William Wallace, his fierce eyes scanning the field, shouted commands to rally his men. Despite the initial disarray, the Scots began to rally under Wallace's relentless spirit. They gathered their courage, reminded of their love for Scotland and their fallen comrades. As the Scots regrouped, the English forces launched a vicious charge down Halidon Hill, clashing violently with the Scottish defenders, who stood bravely, yet were heavily outmatched. Even as the battle raged, the English archers continued their relentless barrage. The Scots struggled to maintain formation under the relentless assault led by Sir Edward de Montfort. The Scots, though determined, were gradually overwhelmed. A young Scottish fighter, his determination fiery, urged his fellow soldiers to hold strong against the English onslaught. Holding their ground proved impossible as the English pushed harder. Sir William Wallace raised his sword, calling upon the spirit of Scotland to unite his army against the English forces. The English army, sensing victory, pressed on relentlessly, forcing the Scots back towards the summit of Halidon Hill. King Edward III observed with keen interest from a distance. The Scottish defences began to collapse under the English onslaught, and the once proud warriors found themselves scrambling, desperately trying to hold the hill against their determined foes. The tide turned into a chaotic frenzy as the Scots fled, battling the tumultuous emotions of defeat and despair. Sir Edward de Montfort charged forward, rallying his men to complete their victory. As the Scottish warriors retreated, the battlefield fell silent, marked by the weight of loss and the end of an era for many Scottish families who had fought valiantly. The decisive English victory at Halidon Hill signified a pivotal moment in the wars of Scottish independence, asserting English dominance while deepening the struggle for Scottish autonomy. The aftermath of the battle revealed the cost of ambition and the enduring spirit of the Scots, who would continue to resist oppression in the years to come. The battle's end posed questions of loyalty and identity for those in Scotland, setting the stage for future leaders like Robert the Bruce to rise from the ashes of despair. In England, the sense of victory infused King Edward III with boldness as he looked to expand his influence within Scotland, unaware of the seeds of insurrection planted during the battle. The events of July 19, 1333, would echo in Scottish history, shaping the future of Scotland and laying the groundwork for further resistance against English rule. Across Scotland, families mourned their losses while igniting the flame of rebellion. The legacy of those who fought at Halidon Hill would inspire generations that followed, reminding them of their bravery. As the sun set on Halidon Hill, it marked not just a defeat, but a transformation of Scottish identity as they prepared for a bolder fight for their sovereignty